Some game fish are easy to admire, and some are not. Salmon amaze us with acrobatic leaps and their ability to migrate thousands of miles across oceans. If channel catfish jumped, perhaps they'd be as famous as other game fish. Catfish rarely are used on the covers of magazines. Yet, if catfish leaped when hooked, they would more likely appear on covers. Though perhaps not as photogenic, catfish fight much harder than most fish that leap. Catfish aren't as easy for some folks to admire as today's more glamorous fish. But get past stereotypes, and catfish are amazing. They are the fish of the masses today, the glamour fish of tomorrow, as North America begins to understand them. Catfish, far from being sluggish and crude, are extremely sensitive to their surroundings. The total of their sensory systems is the most impressive in the North American world of freshwater fish. Compared to cats, fish such as bass and trout are limited and, well, a bit primitive. Every game fish is adapted in special ways to function in certain environments. Basically, catfish are adapted to rivers, and river water can be murky for weeks on end. For catfish to function in such surroundings, they need information from many senses. Logically, the sense of sight would not be important to fish adapted to a turbid environment. We do not think catfish have especially well-developed sight, but they have eyes and use them as a critical part in their feeding strategy whenever water's clear enough. In clear water, they probably are capable of seeing color. The catfish's sense of hearing is highly developed. Cats are sensitive to sounds in their environment, more so in fact than trout, bass, pike, or walleye. Wade into a catfish's pool and he likely knows you're there. He probably heard you when you were several pools away. He may still bite, but he's aware of you. Many a heavy-footed catfisherman has unknowingly spooked his prey before wetting a line. The sense of touch is highly developed in catfish too, important for a fish that often lives around snags. Because cats have no scales, their entire bodies are soft and sensitive. In addition, they have barbels, 8 whiskers of varying length, the basis for the name catfish. Catfish investigate their surroundings with the help of their whiskers, though their entire bodies are sensitive. Additionally, catfish have more highly developed senses of taste and smell than other game fish. Their olfactory organs are amazingly more complex than those of other species. Taste receptors are concentrated on the barbels and around the mouth, but also cover the catfish's body. Imagine, a catfish can actually taste with his tail. Imagine, too, that this sense is so developed that they can actually taste food without even touching it. Add it up, and you have a fish more impressive by far in its acute awareness of its surroundings than glamorous species like bass and muskies. Again, a catfish is like a big swimming sensory organ, keenly sensitive to its environment. No wonder the catfish is such an amazingly successful predator and potentially the most formidable opponent swimming. And can you believe it? This is a fish scorned by some as sluggish and dumb. It seems some fish get no respect no matter how much they deserve it. However, when one looks behind the glossy magazine covers into the hearts of the mid-American angler, one finds that catfish do indeed command their fair degree of respect and popularity. Witness the statistics garnered in a 1985 survey by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, reporting that catfish, along with their cousins the bullheads, were the second most pursued fish group in the country, following only the far more highly publicized black bass. In some states, they are number one by comfortable margins. These anglers have come to realize that the catfish, far from being sluggish and dull, is actually among the most intelligent of the fish groups. One study by researcher Gordon Farabee rated the channel catfish number one in learning ability or memory, followed by bass, northerns, trout, and salmon, respectively. The catfish's yearly cycle can be divided into 10 calendar periods: spring cold water, pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, pre-summer, summer peak, summer, post-summer, fall cold water, and winter. Although these periods always occur in order, their length and time varies according to latitude and local weather. In a nutshell, the catfish angler's year progresses like this. Catfishing begins after rivers stabilize during spring, and fish move into a long pre-spawn period. After spawning, cats settle into holding areas for summer. Fall weather cools water and generally moves catfish downriver to seek large, deep holes in which to spend winter. Winter, which may include ice cover, reduces catfish activity, except during periods of extended warm weather, which may produce very good fishing. A glance at the geographical range of the three major North American catfish species shows them to be pervasive in the continent. Wherever you live, it's a good bet there's some good cattin' within a day's drive of your house. To the surprise of many uninitiated anglers, catfish are not strictly bottom feeders existing on carrion alone. Rather, they are omnivores, meaning they eat just about anything. They often feed on the bottom, as lake trout and pike do, but also attack prey at mid-depths and even feed on the surface. Commercial catfish farmers often feed floating pellets to catfish, which wouldn't make sense if cats fed only on the bottom. In terms of physical size, catfish are the third largest species in North America. The sturgeon and alligator gar are 1 and 2 respectively. The records for the three biggest catfish subspecies are as follows. The world record channel cat weighed in at 58 pounds and was caught by Mr. W.H. Whaley in Lake Moultrie, South Carolina in 1964. The world record blue cat was a whopping 97-pounder caught from the Missouri River in South Dakota by Mr. Edward B. Elliott in 1959. Finally, the blue ribbon flathead was a huge 91-pound, 4-ounce beauty caught from Lake Louisville, Texas by Mike Rogers in 1982. Catfish are primarily a fish of rivers. Though raised successfully in ponds, over 95% of North American catfish angling occurs in rivers and reservoirs. This video deals with how to catch catfish in river situations wherever you live across the country. Rivers can be broken into at least 8 categories referring to geologic age. Very young, young, adult, mature, middle age, old, very old, and tidal. Any river should be broken into sections, as one section can be different in category from another. Catfish exist in all but the youngest of the geologic river formations. For the purposes of this video, we will not distinguish between the various river types, as the techniques and locational patterns we will discuss apply to virtually all rivers. But we will draw a distinction between large rivers and streams in order to elaborate on the various presentation options available.
Drag him out of there, Toad.
Nice one.
Whoa. Well, they really cut the water, don't they? Easy, easy. Handle him, Toady. Handle him. Huh? Fast water, fast action. Big one. Fourth fish out of the series of spots here. And we're only getting started. They're so fast in the water, so streamlined. Good one?
It's not a big one.
Good.
He's a neater fish.
Yeah. You know, hi everybody. I'm Doug Stange along with Ottis Toad Smith, who's got the catfish on here. And you know, when we go catfishing, half the time we don't even ever tell anybody how many fish we catch because people simply do not believe it. There's some really easy thinking, simple thinking that goes along with catching lots of fish. But you can't do what most people do, and that is come down to the bank, park a lawn chair, and then just sit there. You got to keep moving, and you have to understand river stretches, too. Another 2-pounder, huh?
You bet. Good eater. Put him in the live well.
Okay, we'll keep him. The easiest way to understand catfish location in rivers is to look at small streams. Small streams are easier to get to know because the catfish's world is compressed into a small area. In a large river, major holds may be a half-mile apart, but on a small stream, half a mile might contain 10 holes. On a small river, you can see lots of water, but more importantly, you begin to understand the continuing combination of riffles, holes, and runs. Holes are the center of the catfish world. Holes must be deep enough to provide security, yet the surrounding area must also offer food. The hole collects living and dead food as it drifts downriver. In a small stream, a typical hole during a stable summer period might be 30 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 4 feet deep. Now the biggest and deepest holes might be only twice those dimensions. Inactive cats usually hold in the snag or in deeper water in a hole. Active cats, on the other hand, usually move toward the head of the hole, and they find a spot to hold and wait for food washing through the riffle. Active cats also might feed near the snag or maybe roam the hole to search for food. There, Toad, got one right in the riffle area.
Little boy.
One to the side there. Oh,
No. Take it easy. There you go. You get him, want me to grab.
no. I'll tell you what, grab him. You can get him in the water fast here. That's it. Thank you. You know, when we talk about a riffle area, what we're talking about is a hard bottom, a particularly hard bottom section of river. And of course, the moving water doesn't scour a spot like that out, so it stays shallow. So water gets constricted when it flows over there. It flows very quickly, and then when it first meets softer bottom, like you have over there, that's where the hole gets scoured. All right, and then sediment settles in the back end of the hole, and it starts to flatten out, and we call that a run or a flat. And so rivers are made up of a continuous series of riffles, holes, and runs. Riffles, holes, and runs. And the holes are really the home of catfish like this. That's where they're comfortable. That's where most of the food is. And then you have cover areas, like we've got a big snag here, that will be associated with that, and that attracts even more catfish. Usually it's the active fish. Now we're fishing right in the riffle right here, and usually when the fish are real active, they'll move up into the riffle because that's the first place that they can contact food. When they're not quite so active, they'll be in the core of the hole, or in any cover associated with the core of the hole. And occasionally you'll find fish on a flat, especially if it's deep enough. But the key spots in any one area are like this. Usually you fish very quickly through the head end, through the riffle area. Then you really concentrate on the hole. I'm not talking spending a half an hour now. I'm talking 10 minutes, unless you know it's a very, very good hole. But that's in essence what we're talking about. Fish?
There he is.
There you get it. Drag him out of there, don't let. Get his body out of there.
Ooh, he's staying down.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty, you betcha, that's a nice fish. Not wrong with him.
He's not hooked very good.
No, take it easy. That's a good fish, too. I'm going to want some pictures.
Take my rod.
Here, I'm going to want some pictures of him. Well, don't turn him back right away. You get him?
Yep.
There we go. You bet.
Here. Well, that's the second fish out of this ripple. We've got the cream off the top, so let's move down and check the core out.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Most catfishermen would be amazed how many more cats they would catch if they fished quickly. Moving, and moving again. Fishing for active catfish. It's one of the biggest steps to making better catches. Sure, there are times to pop up a lawn chair and pop your rod in a forked stick and then sit back and wait for the cats to come to you. But only after you've seen lots of rivers, and only after you've seen lots of the individual river that you happen to be fishing. And then you can make the judgment about where the best holes are located. Only when you're absolutely sure that big fish have got to be there do you want to spend an entire morning or evening fishing one or two holes. And again, you can only make those kinds of judgments after you've seen lots of river. You know what you need to do? You need to travel where most catfishermen haven't traveled before, beyond forked stick country.
Catfishing. To most folks, it conjures up images of long, leisurely pauses between deliciously infrequent bites. Days and nights of lollygagging on shore, or more peaceful contemplation. But as In-Fisherman Doug Stange, along with Steve Quinn and Ottis Smith, will show us, this facet of the sport of angling need not be the sole domain of riverbank philosophers. No, indeed. Particularly considering the overlooked methods Stange and crew are using. Catfishing can be as active a sport as fishing for trout, bass, or any other species. But we'll let Doug get into that.
Boy, great day for catfishing. Doug Stange here, along with Ottis Toad Smith and Steve Quinn, and we just finished a comprehensive book of the channel Catfish. And if I had to pick out one fishing technique of all that we explored within that book that could help catfishermen catch more fish, it would have to be the use of a float, or as so many people call them, a bobber, when they're drift fishing. You know, so many catfishermen think of floats as something that you should use to suspend a bait, like in a reservoir. No, not at all. When you're drift fishing, a float, a bobber, can really help you present a bait with the current. We're going to be fishing snags today, some deeper holes and some riffle areas, and you can use a float to take a cut bait, which is what we're going to be principally using today, and drift that very efficiently with the current. With a standard hook and sinker drift method, you can only make an efficient drift of, say, 30 feet or so. With a float system, you can drift the bait up to 100 yards. And these drifts will be relatively snag-free because there's less line under the water. Now notice the long rods. Long rods let you cast farther and also set hooks at long distance. But more importantly, long rods let you reach out to steer baits from a bank or wading position. They also help you keep line off the water to create a drag-free drift.
It was a block away.
Indeed, long rods and floats are a deadly combination.
No!
He wasn't nearly as big as I thought. You gotta get him out of that brush.
If you want to be good at catfishing, wading, never wash your feet, never brush your teeth.
Right in the mouth, right in the mouth. I'd like to talk at you. Well, that'd be perfect eating size, but I don't think we're gonna start saving a few fish for quite a while yet. There. You know, I want to show you the simple setup that we're using. This is a slip float. It can be set at any, if you're drifting and you want to set a different depth, all you do is you slide this neoprene stop knot on your line, and it's adjustable, foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, you can fish any depth you want to. Slide the slip float on your line. I'm going to add a hook, 2/0, 3/0 hook is what we're using today, and then we're going to put shot down there to keep the bait down. There's nothing particular about this. The thing is to get your bait moving along the bottom nice and efficiently, using the float up here to help move it along.
There are 3 types of floats of interest to catfishermen. These are the standard Carlisle Float, familiar to most walleye anglers, the Cigar Float, and the Gazette Float. These all have advantages depending on the situation. The Carlisle, with its high stem, is very visible, but for big baits in relatively swift current, it may not be buoyant enough. The Cigar Float is sufficiently buoyant for most large baits, is streamlined, making it easy for the fish to pull under. This float will work in 75% of situations. The Gazette Float, an inverted pear shape, is excellent for extremely fast current, as it tends to remain stable and is extremely buoyant. However, it's also more difficult for the fish to pull under, and therefore has limited application.
Mobility is the key to this system. Until now, we've been waiting, but to find more active fish, you gotta keep moving and searching by any means possible. From hole to hole, from snag to snag, and from bend to bend. Covering more territory means more fish, and that means more fun.
So you see, for anglers who have the savvy to use all the weapons in their catfish arsenal, catfishing can be one of the most active and fun sports on the water.
Oh, he was way down there by the snag, way down. There we are. Ooh, pretty fish, huh? That's the way to start the day. Now, we got a beautiful summer afternoon, and we're going to keep things real simple here. We're going to do a little wading, the river's down, but we're going to talk mainly about bait secrets for summertime catfish. And I suppose there's about a dozen things or so we could talk about, but we're going to keep it real simple. There's some simple tricks to hooking and to rigging, and we want to talk about a little bit about the different bait types. And the end result, of course, is fish like this one right here. We are going to keep some later, aren't we?
There goes one.
Hey, there you go, Toad! Ho, ho! Drag him out of there!
He's coming. But keep him out of the weeds and the woods. Oh, okay. Look at that. Oh, just a good eater. Just swing him. Okay. He's just right for an eater. This one took some cut bait. Cut bait this time of the year is one of the best baits that there is to use, as long as you use bait that's good and fresh, either on ice or alive, and freshly cut, so the good body juices flow down into these brush piles where they can taste and smell it and come on out and grab it.
I tell you what, Toad, why don't you show them what we mean by cut bait?
Okay.
The first thing, of course, is that...
Let's show them a little one, and let's show them a bigger one.
Okay, all we're talking about is that these are freshly killed and put on ice. We've got a sucker there, we've got a chub, we've got a shiner. And when we're cutting the bait, we're cutting the head off, and we're cutting the tail off. And the reason we cut the tail off is simply because that tail catches the current and makes your bait twist around. Then, very vitally important, is just one time through the bait and you leave that hook exposed, because so oftentimes people try to hide the hook in the bait, the fish takes the bait, you set, and instead of setting into the fish, you set back into the bait. Now with a bigger bait like that, all you're going to do is fillet the side off of it, and you can use that. We're going to cut that side in half, and we're going to cut the tail off here, and then we're going to chunk the rest of that. And one thing that's important is how you hook this up. You got your hook handy there?
You bet.
Okay, don't hook this thing in the middle. Hook it right in one of the corners so when it lays in the current, it doesn't twist all around like that. It just lays nice and straight in the current. And again, you've got your hook exposed. That's cut bait. Fresh flowing, wonderful juices. The catfish tastes it in the water, comes for it, and he gets it. Probably, I would say, one of the finest catfish baits you could ever find. And the thing about the cut bait is that it's so readily available. Fish love it so much. I don't think that there's a finer bait that you can get for most catfishing situations. You never want to go catfishing without a steady supply, a good supply of cut bait.
Something touched my bait, but it was just a small one.
How do you know it's a small one?
The little ones just peck, kind of mouth it. The big ones come up, scoop it up, and run.
I don't know. We've been here 10 minutes, but 5 minutes without a bite, but it's such a good spot. Why don't you want to dig out the blood?
All righty.
I think if we might be able to call a couple out of there. We'll do a little chumming too.
Well, I got some good fresh blood hid away down here somewhere.
Whose blood we talking about there, Toad?
Well, this is some good fresh chicken blood I got the other day in a kill plant. I've got it all stripped out. I got it all prepared, ready for catfish. I think what I'm going to do here is pour the top off of it, let it drift down into this snag. A lot of times that'll turn them on a little bit, kind of like feeding sharks. Kind of wakes them up. Now I've got a treble hook here, piece of tag line. Now I got to find me there's a nice strip. Take that strip of blood, wrap it around the hook shank, round and around and around until I've got it all the way around and used up. Take my tag line around the strip of blood, hook the end around the barb and snug it up. And there I've got a tempting little morsel that'll turn any catfish on.
Yeah, but that's true. But I tell you what, oftentimes when we get them turned on with that blood, they'll still hit the cut bait. Cut bait keeps right on working. So I'm going to work that right alongside Toad's blood. You going to give him a little more chum? Ooh, that looks good.
Hang on to your reel handles. Well, there's no fish here, or we'd have one. We just, well, lift the anchor.
All right, I agree. Let's keep moving.
Check it out downstream.
Okay. Fish going. Watch out. Oh, he's got her. There! Whoa! Ooh, ho, ho, ho.
I'll get out of your way.
Flathead. Oh, it's a flathead!
Nice flathead.
Holy smoke. You got him? All right, go one more time. Oh, look at the old maw on him. There you go. Hey, way to go. We haven't caught one of those in a couple years here. You know, it's not all that usual to catch, you know, we're fishing with dead cut bait, and these flatheads love live bait, and we're fishing with dead bait. It's not that you can't catch them, it's just that they really prefer live bait. You know, oftentimes we will take live bait with us when we're specifically fishing for these flatheads, but in a situation like this, it's really too difficult to keep live bait in good shape all day long. And to tell you the truth, I didn't know there was that many flatheads in this section. We're gonna keep this guy. There we go. That's a beautiful fish. You know, when Toad and I hit the river in the summertime, we always make sure that we have two classes of baits with us. And one class of bait, which we've really already shown you, and that's a class of bait that might be indigenous to the area that you happen to be fishing. And that's the primary bait choice for us in most instances. We're talking about a sucker that might be swimming through this stream right here, and we're using dead sucker. In other times of the year, you might go to a crayfish. Frogs are very popular bait. Grasshoppers can be good at different times. And then, of course, to come back to do a bait like this, at certain times you might want to go to a live bait instead of a dead bait. That's one class of baits. The other class of baits are artificial type things. We call them attractor baits, and we already showed you one a little bit earlier. The attractor bait that we're using down the river just a little bit was blood. But there's lots of them. You have dip baits and what are commonly called stink baits that you can inject into plastic tubes, or the dip baits, so often you'll use a little sponge like this and you'll dip the stuff into the runny, gooey, vile concoction. You'll cast it out and fish it for 5 minutes and then have to rebait. In Europe, well, in the United States first, I guess actually the most popular attractor bait are paste baits like this one right here. You can pull a piece off and you wad it on your hook. It fishes for maybe 10 minutes and you have to rebait once again. They come in all kinds of flavors. In Europe, something that's probably going to happen here at some time, they use extracts, and you'll take and you make your own paste and you'll put an extract in the paste, and wonderful attractor. This one happens to be a vanilla thing. It's actually used for carp in England, but you can get them in anchovy flavors, almost any flavor that you want to. So when we head out, we almost always try to have at least two basic classes of bait. One bait, like the cut bait, a bait that's indigenous to the area, and the other bait, like the blood, which is an attractor bait. And you can hardly go wrong if you stay with those two classes of baits. No bites, huh?
Something thumped me, picked me up. Now he's taking line. Yeah! He's a good one. He's a heavy fish.
Get him up. Oh, man.
Can't get him up.
I sure like the way they cut the water like that. It's pretty.
Boy, really
watch out. No, it's a flathead. It's a great big flathead. Holy smokes. Two flatheads out of the same hole. Easy does it on him. Oh, he's
got power.
Yes, he does. Oh, beautiful fish. That thing's gonna go 20 pounds. That is, I tell you what, that's one of the most powerful fish I've ever seen here.
Oh, he's pretty. I'll get him.
Here, I got a glove. Bring him over here. I'll get him by the lip. Easy.
He's a good one.
Yes, he is. Keep his head down. Keep his head down. Well, I got the glove on. Keep his head down. Easy. There we go. There we go. Hey, hey. I'm big flathead catfish. I overestimated he's not 20, but well, he's gonna go 15.
We've got to come back here at night with live bait. There's got to be some real horses in here.
You know, that's a good point. We've been talking about the two classes of baits for summertime catfish, and we've got both types with us. We've got attractor baits and we've got the indigenous baits, but we really need live bait for these flatheads. We figured we were only gonna catch channel cats. Quite a surprise.
Who's prettier?
Boy, she's warm, but it's a perfect evening.
Should be a good night if the bugs don't eat the light.
You know, as the sun goes down in a river like this, one of the most formidable and elusive of all the predators in fresh water goes on the prowl. I'm talking about the flathead catfish. More elusive even than the muskie. Fewer people have caught bigger flatheads, or big flatheads, than have actually caught muskies. And talking about size in a fish, the modern day hook and line record is 100 pounds, but there's pretty good indication that the old days, and maybe even still yet today, there were fish of 150, maybe up to 200 pounds. Only two fish in freshwater you actually get bigger than the flathead catfish. And the principles for catching flatheads, it's really not that difficult. You are going to have to fish at night, a very elusive predator. And what we've got here, Toad and I have been fishing for a couple days, and this is the biggest and the baddest of all the holes in about a 10-mile section of river. And Toad, why don't you tell them what we got here that makes us so unique for flathead catfish?
I think the good thing about this hole, Doug, it's the deepest and the best water we've got for several miles of the river since we've been scouting. We've got good brush piles laying in 6 and 8 feet of water. Those big cats ought to be laid back up in there during the day, and tonight, just at dark, they should come out of there and go on a prowl. Maybe we can snatch some up with some good live baits. A lot of people have misconceptions about catfish. They think you have to have something dead and stinking to catch catfish, and that's just not the case, especially with flatheads. They like a good lively bait. I'm going to pitch this baby right out here by this brush pile, and shouldn't be long, I'll have some action. Now, I don't have a clicker on this reel, so what I like to do is use a rod holder, lay it in there like this, put it on free spool. I just use a stick down here on the line. That way when a cat hits it, he's going to knock my stick out of there, and he'll have a free line so that he can run with the bait.
Now all we are rigged with here is a 5/0 hook and some weights, of course, to hold the bait down. And another misconception about catfishing is that you have to have this leader up here so the fish aren't shy of this whole setup that you have here. But nothing could be further from the truth when you're dealing with snags. You want these weights very close to the actual bait. In fact, I let them slide all the way up to the hook here, and as long as you got a nice, fresh, lively bait, the flathead catfish is not exactly bashful. So we're going to pitch this one out right in front of this snag area here also. And I want you to notice the kind of tackle that I'm using. You know, if we're talking small channel cats during the daytime, almost any kind of tackle will work, but we're talking the same kind of tackle that I use for muskies. And 36-pound, at least 30-pound test, probably 36 and up to 40-pound test line. You are going to have to put the meat to the fish when they grab the bait. Now the rigging that I use here is to set in the rod holder just like Ottis is, but I've got a clicker on this, and so I put the reel and free spool and set the clicker, and that keeps constant tension, and when the cat takes the bait, you're going to hear it.
I'd say about another 15 minutes, then as things quiet down a little bit. I can already hear the carp starting to suck on the brush piles. Then we'll get a little action.
Yeah, fishing for flatheads is pretty much a nighttime affair except for early in the season and maybe way late in the year. But it's not fast. Unfortunately, it's not fast. It's fishing for big fish. Sometimes it's an all-night affair.
Yeah, one thing about it, we got plenty of time. Got one working here. It's taking a little longer.
Yeah, that looks like that's a good fish.
Oh, look at him go.
Out here in the water, just a little bit further. Oh, good fish, Toad. You back. And there we are. You're going to have to come out here and get him.
Too bad, isn't Too bad of a fish.
Oh, he'll go about 15, 18 pounds.
See if I can get a hold of his jaw.
Well, I got both hands full here with the flashlight.
Still hold still.
Ah, right down in here. You bet. Oh, you bet. Ah!
Another dandy.
Yeah? What?
I just wonder how many of them are in this hole.
About 7 pounds, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's at least 7. His head weighs 7.
Mm-hmm. What, 15?
Yeah, I would say a good 15 or so.
Pretty fish.
Should we do turn him loose?
Yeah, I got that other one for still photos.
Boy, tough skin. Boy, that hook is really buried in that little corner of his mouth.
Let's just cut her out. Just cut the hook and let her.
Okay. You can have a little rod out of there in a day or two.
Well, I won't hurt him a bit.
No.
Here, let him go. Where he's pooped out.
Back to the depths.
Oh, that's a lot of fish. It's a lot of fish for one night, I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, terrible bug. know, Doug, I think a lot of fishermen, catfishermen, make the mistake. When they come to a river, they just fish the first hole they come to.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we know about a 9-mile section of river here, and this is absolutely the biggest and the baddest, I'm talking the deepest hole in this section. And we've got a 5-mile straight section above us, and all the timber from up there is blowing into this big corner here. This is an exceptional hole. It's just not any hole that you might come to.
Do you think that these cats are going to just live in this hole, or just going to stay in this hole, or do you think they're going to go up or downstream to other holes?
Well, when the water's down like this, the fish are going to get in a big hole like that, they're going to stay here. Now, if the water comes up, they might move around a little, but for right now, we've got a resident population of catfish almost trapped right in this hole because of the low water.
Well, as long as we keep our baits placed just right, it's just a matter of time, then we should get some action.
Absolutely.
Pretty good chicken, eh? Bite?
I don't know. I mean, look. Toad! Toad! That's a flathead catfish. Toad! Oh, yeah, I got a fish.
You got him?
Good fish. Let me tell you, this is a stout.
Well, pump him in.
Smokes.
Pump
Yeah,
him in.
I got him. Here he comes.
Don't horse him too bad.
Oh.
Get him in where we can see him.
Not just a minute, not just a minute. Get a little closer over here with, you all right with the light?
Really hogging in there.
Oh, they're so tough. Oh, look at that.
Don't lose him.
No, don't worry. Oh, they are so cotton. Oh.
He's a Dan.
Oh, easy, right. I haven't got the drag set. Oh, here he comes in.
I'll get in behind him when you get him in the shower.
All right, let me get him in here tight before you try to get him.
Oh, he's a hog. What is it?
There he is. Holy smokes.
That's a Dan.
Wait now.
Can you get him by the lip?
Oh, I can get him right here. Whoa, now we're talking flathead catfish, huh?
That is a dandy.
Oh, that is some fish. Look at there.
Boy, look at the head on that.
Huh?
Baby.
That
We've
fish
got to
is...
keep him for some still shots later.
All right. Well, that fish is 37. I'm guessing 37 inches long. 25, 26, maybe 27 pounds. I don't know.
Yeah,
I tell you what, go get me that keep sack there. I want to put him in there. I want to get a few shots with him pretty soon. Oh, that is some kind of critter, huh? Holy smokes. Look at that. Whoa.
His head's bigger than yours.
Yeah, almost. Oh. Tell you what, hand me the keep sack now. And I'm gonna... There, we'll just slide him in right here first like this. Oh, that is some kind of fish.
Was he gonna fit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a good one before. There we go.
I'll get him drug out and I'll drag him out.
That surprises me. This is a small river. I really didn't think we'd get one that big.
I told you.
Yeah. Ooh, that's hot there.
You know, I think, Doug, once a guy's found the place to fish, I think the real key is having good bait.
Oh, I agree with you. You know, it's got to be lively, and it should be big. You know, the stuff that we're using tonight go maybe 6, 7, 8 inches, but if you're talking suckers, I'd go 8, maybe 10 inches. But it's got to be lively. Just, you know, bait suckers, no good.
Oh, there goes my stick.
Yeah, that looks like a...
Feels pretty good.
Oh, it's a good fish, Toad. Keep his head down. Just keep his head down right there. That's it. Oh, you bet. Big,
There he comes.
big fish. That's another 25.
Yeah, he's coming.
Okay, go ahead.
So I can get a better grip. Look at the size of that mouth.
Oh, yeah. Another good fish. You bet. He's as big as the last one. He's a little skinnier, though.
He's not quite as heavy as that big one.
You know,
He's a dandy.
I don't know how many pounds of fish we got out of here tonight, but the whole point is that this is just not an average hole. We've been up and down the river looking things over. It's taken us a couple days, but it's really paid off. Location is half the key, then of course the good live bait. That's a beautiful fish.
Should we turn him loose?
Well, how big are you guessing first here?
Most folks associate Mark Twain with his more memorable literary characters, like Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, Injun Joe, and others. However, many people don't know that as a young man, Mark Twain, or Samuel Clemens if you prefer, was a member of an elite corps of men who were riverboat pilots. In these early days, he came to know the mighty Mississippi on intimate terms. Its meandering channels, its hidden obstructions, its behavior in high and low water conditions. In short, he came to understand the very heart of this waterway, which provided his living, and the experiences which later translated into some of our most memorable literature. In-Fisherman magazine editor Doug Stange has likewise discovered that an intimate understanding of rivers is a must for any serious catfishing enthusiast.
Mark Twain, paddle boats, big rivers, and I'll tell you what, don't you forget big catfish go hand in hand. Hi everybody, I'm Doug Stange along with my friend Rich Ekholm, and we're going to show you the simple principles involved with taking big catfish from big rivers. I'll tell you what, the principles are guaranteed. The area below a dam is one of the best spots to fish on any big river. Traveling catfish are stopped by the dam and often hold in the area because the boiling current attracts bait fish and lets catfish feed on them effectively. You need to look for current breaks, areas where slack water meets fast water. That's where you need to put your bait. My favorite bait, by the way, is a big piece of cut bait. That is a section of bait fish like a sucker. I'll tell you what we're looking for, Rich. You see the current wash here, and then the current wash back here, and where those two come together, you've got kind of a tunnel area along the bottom. And that's where those catfish hit that, and they use those tunnel areas to travel in this fast water. Current wash areas are distinct current edges. The obvious break areas are where faster current meets slower moving water. Remember to be extremely careful when you're fishing in the dam tailwater, however. Some areas are simply too dangerous to fish. Good one?
Yeah, I got a good one here. I got a little pull. There's just no giving up on this guy. Look at him pull. I don't think he wants to throw it though. There he is. Oh, shit. That's it. Throw it down again. Now he's got it. All right. Woo, way to go. What a beautiful. Boy, that guy bite.
Put him down there.
I'll pull my arm off.
Big fish, Rich. Big fish.
Yep. Oh, he's got strong jaws.
Tell you what we're going to do. I'm guessing he's 20 pounds. We're going to put him in a weigh sack and weigh him here. 20 on the nose. An honest 20. There we go.
Right.
As you head downstream from the dam, look for the river channel. As you move down the river channel, look for deeper holes in the channel. That's the home of the catfish. Often these holes are found on outside river bends where current sweeps against the bank. This is classic cat territory. Just like up at the dam, what we've got here is an edge. It's a different kind of edge. Up there we had current edges. Here we've got a big flat coming out. It breaks into the channel here. That buoy is marking the edge of the channel. And so this bend comes up against this bank, and she's deeper. She goes from about 12 feet down to about 17 feet. We're going to try to fish the edge of that bend. Fish come filtering through here all the time. We could find spots like this, so 3 or 4 a mile all the way down the river. Again, you're looking for high percentage holding spots for cats. The river bends are those spots. Follow the meandering river channel and fish the spots where it sweeps against the bank. Also look for wing dams or anything else that obstructs current. Active cats usually move to the front face of wing dams to feed. On the other hand, inactive cats usually hold behind the wing dams in the reduced current. Feeder creeks, too, create washout holes where cats may hold, especially during fall, as they drop out of feeder creeks for the winter. Feeder creeks also bring food, like insects and fish, even small baby birds, easy pickings for catfish. I tell you, rigs for big river fishing are very simple. That's one of the nice things about catfishing. All we're using is a piece of cut sucker. You want to make sure that your hook is through, maybe a 1/0 or 2/0 hook, all the way through the bait, and you want the barb exposed so that when you set the hook, it's going to find flesh. All I've got here is hook, split shot, slip rig, about 2 ounces of weight. The only thing you have to remember in terms of distance from split shot to the hook here is that the further you have this up the hook, the more this thing is going to tend to roll. So we don't have quite so much current here, so I'm going to move this up. And the heavy current that we had up by the dam, we move this down about like that, about 6 inches to a foot, and that reduces the amount of line twist. The only thing you have to remember is once you're out, don't let the bait set there all the time. About every minute, move the bait a little bit. Reason being, your bait might fall into a crevice, a place out there that a catfish can't get at it. So move the bait about every minute. Got one going. Really? Just let her go down. Yeah, there we go. Fish. You bet. Good one. Oh, that feels good. Way down there, though.
Like a good one?
Yeah, he's gonna go, well, I'd say a little bigger than your fish.
Oh, of course. I'll wait and see here.
He's coming up.
He's coming up?
There he is. Get him down on the current. I'll get easy. You ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, here he comes up. There we go. Here we go. Woo!
Good one. I would say you're right.
I'd say that's
Could be
almost
bigger.
a replica of the last one. Ah! Woo! Are those nice fish? I tell you, big rivers mean big fish. Rich's first 20, and 2 20-pound cats that even Mark Twain would have been proud of. Miserable stuff. Woo! But it's a good spot. We fished here last year, took fish to just about, well, the biggest one we weighed was 21 pounds. And this is the time of year, and it is the time of day. The bank the channel kind of swings in along the bank right here, and it's a pretty good spot. And I'd say we got about 3 hours to do our prime fishing. You got the suckers, eh?
You bet. Where do you want them?
Let's put them right here. We'll christen this sucker rock. If I can get rid of all my cameras.
You got the hook sinkers?
I got everything we need. Everything we need. So Otis, how big a sucker piece do you want out here? You want to warm up with a 10-pound slice or a 20-pound slice? What?
20 pounds and up. Nothing little. All good.
There you go. Take that. And it doesn't take much of a cast, actually. Yeah, it's just about right. You know what I find with these big cats is that, you know, on a reel like this 6500 here, you've got this clicker and you set that thing, and you put the thing on free spool, you put the clicker on, and the cat is going to take the line out, and as long as there's constant tension, they don't mind tension as long as it's constant tension.
Well, I'm going to use my old rock trick. I like to put it on free spool. Just put a rock on the line.
Nothing too complicated, huh?
No, I just like to sit back, watch that rock fly out in the lake.
Well, I've got the coffee ready. Whoa, Susie, we got one here. Woo!
These
There
already?
we go.
That's not fair.
Yee, he's running down river. I mean, way down there. I tell you what, let's not put him in the net. Probably not quite 20. No. It's a pretty good fish. No. Here, I tell you what, let's beach him here.
Give me a rod.
Hold the rod, I'll get him right here. There we go. Oh, you betcha. That's the way to start the day. Woo! Huh?
It ain't
I'm
bad.
guessing 18, 19.
Not bad.
That's a
for
good
little.
start. That's a good start. Can you get the hook? Boy, they are pretty fish. This is a big female. Boy, I love those faces. I could just watch this fish all day in this light. Big cats are active at night, no question. But not everyone realizes that there's a great catch-up bite around dawn. A cycle of big cat activity looks something like this. Very slow during midday, picking up approaching midnight, but definitely reaching a peak again from about 4 to 9 in the morning. For my money, the morning bite is the best bite of all.
Ooh, my rock. There he goes. Tighten up on him.
There we go,
That's how you make you stick your tongue out.
Put a bend in her hat, all right.
I'm talking burnt skin.
Ah!
Well, I'll get him, little fella.
You got him whipped?
He's coming now.
Okay, get him right over here. We got a nice flat spot. Yeah, you got him right. Here you go. Get up here.
Got him? Oh. Come on, big fish.
Whoa, he's slippery. There. How
Hey,
about
what
that?
a dandy, what a dandy.
You handle him. Here, grab. I'll get the weigh sack a minute. We'll put a scale on him. I think we're talking 18, 19, 20 pounds.
Big old head.
Okay, you get one last look, Ottis. One last look. I'll tell you, that's a fish to...
Let him go.
Okay.
Keep him out.
All right, we'll slide him in. Oh, he's... Whoa! There's one. I'm talking.
Feel like a good one?
You betcha. Right here before we're gonna see him.
Oh, he's a dandy.
Ooh, that is a pig. Whoa! I'm talking 23, 4 or 5 pounds here.
Here, give me your rod. Hold that.
Now we're talking. Right here. Oh, big. Whoa. Look at the size of that thing. Woo! Look at the belly on that dude. Holy smokes, Toad. That's the biggest fish I've had all year.
That's a sumo cat.
Yeah, I believe so. Look at him. He's beautiful. 26, 27, it bottoms out the scale. What a fish. And I'll tell you, night fishing is great, but if you don't want to spend the entire night fishing, get out there at least by 4 or 5 in the morning and fish the early morning bite until about 10.
Well, there you have it. Don't tell the millions of American catfishermen that catfish aren't glamorous. Catfish are one of America's favorite fish for good reason. They're a challenge to catch. They're one of the toughest, most tackle-bustin'est customers around. They grow to tremendous size. They're good on the table, too. Nutritious, delicious, and if we harvest them wisely, a renewable resource. Hey, we can have good catfishing for years to come. You know, there's lots more to catfishing than we've been able to cover here. Well, good news. There's more to come. Videos that target specific catfish species as well as specific catfish topics. In the meantime, latch onto a copy of our book, Channel Catfish Fever, comprehensive coverage of channel catfishing for the 1990s. Then we'll meet you back here for top-notch visual instruction that means more catfish and more fun. Other titles that exist in the In-Fisherman video treasury of angling wisdom are In-Fisherman Classics. You know, for years you've been hounding us to make our award-winning television shows available in home video form. Well, we're doing that and a whole lot more. The In-Fisherman Classics takes you back to the beginning of In-Fisherman television and guides you right up to the present. It's a chronicle of events that shaped the course of modern angling. The Tactics and Strategy series consists of the same kind of hard-hitting action and entertainment provided by the award-winning television specials while delivering the most in-depth educational how-to fishing ever laid down on video. These tapes are guaranteed to set the standard by which all others are judged. The Discovery Year series takes a documentary approach, species-specific, providing you with an expanded view of the foundations of modern freshwater fishing. Electronics, fish behavior, structure, precision boat control. A comprehensive look at the factors responsible for bringing lures and rigging design into the modern age of angling. Our Travel and Adventure series brings you the whens, wheres, and hows concerning the In-Fisherman's most exciting field trips. It provides you with material both to fuel your wildest dreams and to more confidently plan your trip of a lifetime. For more information, write In-Fisherman Video. Post Office Box 999, Brainerd, Minnesota 56401. Or call the In-Fisherman Video Hotline, 1-800-283-2009.